Welcome to Storytellers Showcase. On this episode of our show, we have a teller for you named Suzon Lucore, and I'd like to describe for you what she does, but it'd be a shorter list to describe for you what she doesn't do. One of the most pertinent things to me in the storytelling world is that Suzon is on the board of the Sacramento Storytellers Guild. We meet once a month, and you can contact me to find out more about that. My number will be in the credits. And so, Suzon, welcome to our program. When did you get started, or how old were you when you got started storytelling?
Well, I was a small child when my dad would tell stories, and I would climb under the table and hide because he didn't think children should be telling stories, but I was absorbing all of it. And then I got into improv in my early 20s. I did a little stand-up comedian type thing, and my comedy was all stories. And so when I found storytelling, I'm like, oh, and it was just a wonderful opportunity for me to share my stories without getting booed and hissed because I didn't have enough F-bombs. So, so literally just about a year and a half ago, I've been telling at the Guild in the different places, and I'm really happy to do it, and I love it.
Okay. So you've only been telling stories in this kind of a format for about a year and a half.
That is correct.
Well, we love your stories.
Oh,
thank you for doing so well. And so are you doing anything else with your storytelling these days? Are you just at the Guild, or what are you doing?
I am on California's Storytelling, well, their membership, and I am also working with In a Nutshell and promoting local stories on a wider audience base. They have a lot of comedy in their stories, but they're still very entertaining. I have told stories in San Diego. I have gone to different types of festivals like the Timpanogos Festival in Utah, and that was fabulous. That just blew my mind that I was really opening up myself to a whole new genre.
Wow, great. You've done quite a bit in a relatively short time. So, without any further ado, here is an excellent storyteller, here to have fun, Suzon Lucore. Take it away.
Thank you. Well, when I'm just 10 years old, this boy made quite an impression on me. Walking into the room, the cafeteria, I'm eating my peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Oh, oh. He was pretending to be a zombie. The boys reacted very quickly by taking him and placing him in the giant garbage can. And this did not stop him. The smell of garbage for some reason attracted me to this person. It was so unique. It was just a few weeks later when he came in, earthquake! And the movie in 1974 had just released. He had seen it, and he had decided that he was going to be in an earthquake all day long until the teacher made him stop. Well, the boys again picked him up. This time they turned him upside down in the garbage can. And again, I knew I needed to be connected with this person for a very long time. I wanted to let you know that I've not only had adventures with him, but my son's middle name is after him, Greg Herger. And he's still in cinema in some level or another, and I'm, just glad to call him my friend. And fourth grade, it was amazing. All the different people interacting. We had a school of 136 people, and our classroom was the biggest at 30. So most of us had different personalities. I learned early on that if I wasn't the cool kid, I was gonna be. So I would walk up to the girls, the little mini cheerleader type people. Oh, you're so beautiful. You're just so gorgeous. I don't know how you've been that way. And I'd go up to the young football players without even any helmets, but flags on the side of your feet or your hips. I'd say, oh, you're so strong. I don't know how you do it, but I love the way you hold that football. It worked. Fairly soon I could go up to the druggies, and although their druggies was just pretty much marijuana at the time, I don't know what they got into later, but I'd say, hey man, what's going on? I really like your style. Cool. Well, again, I was friends with almost everybody, but I still had the teachers to get. Mrs. Epperson, you're my favorite teacher. You're so wonderful. You bring those short skirts in. All the boys just love you, and I love you too, but not because of your short skirts, but because you're the best teacher in the whole school. Mrs. Roberts, the way you teach English, it's phenomenal. And you are my favorite teacher. Well, let's just say that I kept going and going. And by the time I was in high school, that's another story. And I was in Spanish class. I was an artist. I knew I was an artist, like I knew I was a girl. And I've got A's in art. It was great. But my art teacher, a small school, also was the Spanish teacher. She was so sad and disappointed in me because here I am, this great artist, but I can't speak a word of Spanish. I couldn't even say hola with the right pronunciation. So she just gave me a key to her classroom. Go there and just paint to your heart's content, which I did. And maybe a week went by. Robbie Ramus. Miss, you kicked me out of the class. I can't speak Spanish either. Just a few days later, Tony Stam, come on in. I understand you can't speak a word of Spanish. She goes, well, I just was acting out a lot. So fairly soon, I had 7 students in my art class. Only one with real talent, other than myself, of course. But we did all kinds of drawings. We did drawings of Iron Maiden. We did drawings of the preacher up on the podium. But within him on the podium, I didn't like him much, so I would draw pins and needles through his nose and in his cheeks. And then I would put blood dripping off of these. Now, mind you, my parents never saw these drawings, and if they did, I would have probably been expelled from the church. So now I'm going to tell you again about another high school experience. Now, I had a little crush on Randy Purbaugh. Oh, he was a dreamboat. I also had a mini crush on my friend Greg Herger because we had had so many wonderful experiences together. Greg decided to draw his ram Sherlock. Now Sherlock was just a normal ram with the little horns, but he drew his scrotum pretty large. Well, Randy took the paper away from him and he drew it longer. And fairly soon they had to tape 2 pieces of paper together to get his enlarged testicles to go through the page and off around, and then this twine around or sweep around till he was off the page. And then Mr. Wolcott caught it and he took it away and he looked at it and he snickered. He folded it up nice and neat, the 2 pages, and put it in his pocket. I don't know what he was fantasizing about later, but he did seem to be amused. Mr. Woolcock was a great science teacher. I mean, I learned the simple pleasures of putting a Mentos in a Pepsi Light and watching it explode. It was so wonderful. You know, again, these important things. What did I learn in science? Oh, Mentos and Pepsi Light. So, really had a good time in high school. I was poor because we were poor. My parents bought me 2 pair of pants a year and they were both tan. So one of my nicknames was Tampax. Not a good name that you want. And so I would paint circles on one pair and diamonds on the other. And I would, through the year, would add question marks and anything I could to make these pants look different. I begged my mom, can I please have a pair of jeans? I mean, everybody was wearing the Sergio Valente jeans and the Angel Flight jeans, and I so wanted a pair. But again, I could only have 2 pair of jeans the whole year, or pants. So she decided to make me and sew me a pair of jeans. And as I got them, they actually fit, but they were kind of high-waisted, kind of, you know, just really looked bad and dorky. Dorky would be the good word. So she said, well, what do you want different? I want this design on the butt, Mom. Can't you believe that? I'm trying to get through to you. I showed you pictures of what it looks like. So she made it look different. She sewed a decal of a duck on my butt. And so people were calling me Duck Butt. It was better than Tampax, I have to say. It was a little step up. But because we were so poor and I had a bad experience with my brother, I moved out when I was 16 years old. I worked at McDonald's. It's a pleasure to work at McDonald's, and I meant it. I did get hired there, and it seemed like a big waste of money because they would shoot these hamburgers down the chute and put a number, let's say 15, on it at 1 o'clock. At 1:15, somebody had to take those and throw them away for health reasons. And I'm like, that's crazy. And since I lived on my own, I was looking for any way to make money. So I said, I want that job. They said, well, it comes with the trash. You have to take out the trash too. Okay, but I still want the job. So I would mark on the waste sheet 3 Big Macs, 2 Filet-O-Fishes, a cheeseburger, a hamburger, and I was supposed to put them in the garbage can. But no, I put them in a big giant bag and put them in the walk-in refrigerator. And I would take those home, microwave them in the morning, and a Big Mac this big would become a styrofoam Big Mac this big. I would take them out to the farms in the morning, and I would open up the back of my 71 Vega, and I'd sell them. They were $1 a piece, 25 cents for a Shasta Cola, which cost me about 5 cents at the time. But if it was refrigerated, it was 50 cents. And by those hot days, hey, I sold a lot of 50-cent Shasta Colas. So I was definitely an entrepreneur. In kindergarten, I even sold candy on the bus and then beef jerky. By the time I was 8, I went to Arkansas, the pit of the world. And maybe not for everywhere in Arkansas, but for the places I experienced, not so great. However, we always went in the winter or summer, and during the 4th of July, I could buy a brick of fireworks, and it was 100 packs of fireworks inside this brick for $8. Well, I'd take all the money I made from selling candy and beef jerky, and I'd buy as many bricks as I could, because when I got back to school, I was now in the firework business. Each pack was $1. Just like my hamburgers, keep it simple. I would have people lining up, and I would still ride the bus because I could sell candy on the bus, even though I had a car. So I would ride the whole route of the bus and get back to my Vega and drive it to McDonald's to go to work. Put my little hat on, adjust my outfit. I was swanky as heck. But back to the food, turns out that there was a lot of bums, hobos, vagabonds, whatever you want to call them, that getting in my garbage and trashing it everywhere. And myself, as the garbage lady, I had to pick it up. It just became gross and disgusting. So I found some of these people going into my garbage one night, probably around 10:15, and we closed at 11, to throw a bunch of garbage there. And they were ready. They were cocked and ready to go. I said, hey guys, I'm going to make a deal with you. If you don't touch my garbage and you protect it so in the morning they don't find any trash on the ground, I will fill your order. So that, they would tell me, they would go through drive-through and try to set it off with 7 or 8 people. Sometimes it worked, and sometimes they had to walk all the way up to the drive-through window. And Fred was one of my favorites. I want a Big Mac, a strawberry shake. I'm like, Fred, we took down the shake machine just 10 minutes ago. And they go, okay, a Sprite, and I want an apple pie. We don't have any more apple pies. Okay. Then I would take the orders from the next 6 or 7 people. Then I'd hear Fred changing his voice. I want a Filet-O-Fish and 3 apple pies. I know we don't have any apple pies because we've sold them all. So this is really unfortunate that I can't offer you that. Well, I want a chocolate chip cookie and 2 orders of fries. And I'd say, Fred, I know it's you, even though you changed your voice. So I would fill this order and nobody bothered the garbage. Nobody. In fact, when I quit my work, they offered me $8 an hour, which I was only getting $3.35 an hour, to come back and just work that shift for an hour, just so that they wouldn't have to pick up the garbage. And I was too afraid to tell them how I had done it because I'd given away hundreds of dollars of free food. So that was just, enjoyable. And In high school, I also had a gambling casino with the roulette wheel. So my roulette wheel, even though 19 is my favorite number, red was my favorite color, it was really hit and miss of which one I wanted, but I chose black 19. I put my thumb on it and carry it around the campus. And of course, if I spun the ball just so lightly when the house got to spin, I'd always win. And I also had a deal with Johnny Taylor, and it's his real name, so if you guys want to look him up, he cheated. And he would give me half of his take when I gave him some signs. Now, would I do this now? Oh, no. Would I sell food that's left over from McDonald's? No. But I did some crazy things then. I even sold crawdads, crayfish. I had this whole design where everybody's picking them up, bending over, and picking them up out of the river. Like, that's crazy. I live in the rice field and 3,000 acres of rice. They just get stuck in the drainage ditches. So I knew how to turn off the pump, put my 5-gallon bucket below it, put chicken wire around the pipe, and then let the water, turn it back on just a little bit, let it trickle. And then about 10 minutes, they were all pushed up against there and no water could go through except for a few drips. I'd turn it back off. I'd take the chicken wire off from the top because you don't want to do it from the bottom, and they would just fall into the bucket. I dragged them up the ditch into my red wagon and walked 1.5 miles to the store. And the woman there sold bait. She sold crawdads. But she felt sorry for me, I guess, one day. Plus, I bought a lot of big, what do they call those? Rocky Road candy bars, Yoo-hoo drinks. It's basically chocolate milk. I don't know how they do it. But I would buy a lot of food at that little store. So she felt, pity for me. And here I am at 12 years old selling crawdads, 10 cents a piece or 15 for $1. And occasionally I'd catch a big fish. Now usually they were carp, but once in a while you get a bass. It didn't matter. If I had a fish in my bucket, I put it in the wagon and fishermen would come and not buy the bait, but they'd come back on the way back. They'd buy one of my fishes for $2. It was brilliant. I had this all worked out. So great. So I wanted to let you know a little bit about Greg Herger. Besides him getting thrown in the garbage can, he was a visionary, and he would go to the midnight show of Night of the Living Dead, a classic zombie flick, at the midnight show 45 miles away from where we lived. I would also go to the midnight show, but this time I'd wear my crooked hat, my bright green shirt, my yellow bow tie, black pants really tight, and I would have in my survival bag a piece of toast. For a toast, you throw it. I'd have some rice. For the wedding, throw the rice. I had a newspaper under my arm at all times to protect me from the rice and the water because there's a squirt gun in there. And squirt, squirt, squirt when it rains. It's wonderful. And then at the, scene where it says, "You're a hot dog and you better not hurt a frankfurter," the clue was to throw a hot dog. And sure, we had survival kits, but mine were always the best because I'd even use half of a roll of toilet paper for great Scott. Well, I had Greg go with me a couple of times, but he wasn't as amused as I was because I couldn't wait to do the time warp in the aisle with, hundreds and hundreds of people. But I would go eventually I would go to the Night of the Living Dead. And the first time I saw it, I was so grossed out. People eating their flesh, eating cockroaches, anything they could get their hands on. I was pretty disturbed by it the first time, the second time, but by the third I had become desensitized. One night I went to his house in my Vega, couldn't get the air conditioning to work. It was about 11 o'clock, we were ready to go. We had decided to see Night of the Living Dead that night. And what's really interesting is that we couldn't get Greg's car to start. So it looked like we're not going to get to go. And then he says, "Aha, let's take my dad's work truck." I'm like, "Okay." And he goes, "Yeah, take the cow truck." So we go and we watch the movie, and it was the basic gore movie. We get out, it's about 2 o'clock in the morning. He click, click, click. Click, click, click. No start on his dad's truck. So Greg traipses off to the nearest payphone with his dime in hand and calls his dad, still rotary. Click, 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 click is what it did. But I wasn't there. I was in the truck safe and sound, or at least so I thought. I'd started to doze off and I heard this noise or knocking on the window. Hey lady, open the door. I got some candy in my bag. I was freaked out. I looked out the window and there is Greg staring at me, laughing his butt off. Laughing. So Greg was staring down at me, laughing. And I told him, this is not funny. I rolled the window down and I slapped him in the side of his face. Get in the truck. Your dad's going to be here pretty soon. Oh, it's going to be another half hour. So as I'm settling in again, I start to doze off. No. On the window. And I'm like, oh, that's it. So I take my purse and I slap him across the face and I hit his knees. I was so pissed at him because I was so upset with him. I was so upset with him that I hit him really hard and I was prepared to do it again. And this time I wasn't really asleep yet. You know that time between when you are awake and you're asleep and you're dozing off? I hear, oh, now Greg had it. So I took my purse and I beat him with it over and over. That's not funny. And then I realized Greg was asleep. And the knock on the window was his dad. He was not happy. So he's, get out of the truck. I guess you guys are ready to go. He went to the back of the truck and there was a big blue tarp in the back of this giant work truck. And he whipped it off, I thought, to get maybe a jumper cables or something. It was a dead, slaughtered cow. That's why they called it the cow truck, because they had just slaughtered it in the evening right before we picked it up, and they put a couple of, I don't know, bags of ice on it. I'm not even really sure if they did that or not. However, I knew I was freaked out by a dead cow. And after, especially we'd seen the zombie movie, it was freaking crazy. But again, I had just survived the cow truck. So we were punished by having to go to dinner 6 weeks in a row with his family. He happened to be Mormon. He had a huge family, 9 brothers and sisters. So because my mom couldn't cook and I was eating McDonald's every day, I didn't mind eating there. It wasn't such a bad punishment. But Greg couldn't stand it. 6 weeks without going to the movies? Oh, that can't happen. So he decided, let's make our own zombie movies. We even got a collection of the adults in the town to come and lay down in the graveyard where I dumped a bag of topsoil on them. And they would rise from the dead when Greg would say, action. They would rise, and one person would bite another person that's there to grieve somebody. And then that person in turn turned around and bit somebody else. And soon the whole place is full of zombies. Now again, Greg Herger loved making these zombie movies, but he also loved Night of the Living Dead. He bought an actual size, full size film, Night of the Living Dead, bought the projector, bought the speakers, and we rented out East Nicholas Hall for $50 a night. We sold tickets for $1 or a can of beer. And we had people lined up to come. Sometimes we had a full house, usually, sometimes only 50, but still we got a lot of beer. We would take the beer at the end of the night once the adults left. We'd sell it for $6 a piece to minors. Oh, I was the entrepreneur, but so was Greg. We had so much fun. It was insane. So we decided to make another one. We watched The Night of the Living Dead last so that people would leave, the adults. And of course we would start it at 10 in the evening, so they would be leaving by 10:30. We had plenty of time for the party. But then I decided, yeah, it's a good idea for us to make another movie. We had still 4 weeks of our punishment to go. We made one called The Adversary, and I had this giant house next to us that was abandoned. And in the house, It had got cobwebs on it that had been empty for 6 years. So we decided to make the movie inside there. It was wonderful. We had these great ideas in our head that there's a brick about that wide. My neck is about that wide. We're going to put it through the window, and Greg's going to shoot inside and then cut, go outside, and then shoot up from the ground of me sticking my head through the window. And I'm supposed to say, we can get through here. And then someone's supposed to slam the window, but the brick saves me, right? Someone turned the brick sideways. Greg got a real scream. A real scream. I mean, bloody murder. My neck was sore for weeks, but I went ahead and we did, some other scenes that were remarkable. We had Ellen Lathrop, the homecoming queen, have her head blow up as a zombie. And the way we did that is that we had a dummy posed the way she was posed with her hands up and above. It was a mannequin, actually. But we put a pumpkin on top of her head. We filled it with spaghetti, red and white spaghetti. And then it was my job to shoot it with a shotgun. Her head exploded. And of course, when you're watching the movie, you're like, that's Ellen Lathrop. Oh my God, was that a pumpkin? Because we didn't cut it close enough, but we did blow up the pumpkin. We had, again, so much fun. I have other movies to tell you about. One of them was called The Adversary. Now, Greg turned out he was a little on the lighter side. He had a interest in boys more than girls, but I didn't know that. I was oblivious. He got the entire football team to go to the river and get in the water with their tighty-whities on. And of course, one zombie ate the other, and the cheerleaders are crying at the bank. But they come out of the water, and I see all in the film, just close-ups of them in their tighty-whities. They didn't even get the faces, except for the lake itself, the river. I loved pork chops. My mom was a terrible cook. Her cornbread was, if any, a ½ inch thick and burned on the black on the bottom. It was like eating charcoal. It was terrible. But she made one thing that I really liked. Deep fried, flour dipped, salt and peppered pork chops. And oh, I love these. Now at 5 years old, when my mom said I couldn't be an artist, I started eating double. That was my way of surviving, to be an artist. But by pork chop time, I was a little full-figured, if you will. And I really enjoyed these pork chops. So my mom brought home a big platter of raw pork chops. Your 13th birthday's coming up in a couple of days. Invite anybody you want, and we will have a feast. I'm no dummy. If I don't invite anybody, there's more pork chops for me. It's like pork chop palooza. I can't wait. So comes the day of my birthday. My mom is preparing them, and she's not cooking them yet. She said, when's your friends coming over? And I had to confess, they're not. I shrugged my shoulders like all innocent and stuff, batted my eyelashes as much as I could. Didn't seem to work on her. I can't believe that you didn't invite anybody, and I have all these pork chops. So she grabs her Rolodex. She flips through it, kind of like an archaic friend finder. Grabbed the phone off the hook with the yellow phone cord around and around. She went and started dialing at least 6 people. Would you like to come to my daughter's birthday party tonight? Would you like to come to my daughter's birthday party tonight? And she kept getting no's. Well, there was one woman that had just moved there from Texas to Beale Air Force Base, which was about 30 miles from where we lived. She convinced her and her 12-year-old son, and of course she just told her 3-year-old son that we're going to her birthday party. So they came in, and Mrs. Kropp was very formal. It was like she was wearing white gloves, and she, probably formed her napkins in the shape of swans. Mwah, mwah, dear. Happiest birthday. And Lauren, the 12-year-old's voice was starting to squeak a little bit. Hello, happy birthday. And not always, but sometimes. And then little Chris was just sucking on his thumb, didn't say a word. But Mom invited them in, and she had already started cooking knowing that they were coming. She didn't burn any that day. It was amazing. was really thrilled about that. But here's this platter of pork chops on our table, all the fixings. Again, burnt lots of things, but the good news was the mashed potatoes, the gravy, and the pork chops were great. Well, it turns out guests get to go first. It's my birthday. I don't even want a cake. I just wanted pork chops. I got really upset with it. My mom says, you sit down. You know guests go first. So Lauren sat right next to me on my left, and he said, thank you for having us, Mrs. Walton. My mother said, you're welcome. The plates passed. Pork chops came to Lauren. He took 2. Oh, no, he didn't. We're only allowed 1 in the family, although I had intention to eat them all when they left. I took 2. And they went around the table. My mom glared at me like I had done something wrong, like burned a Bible or something. She was really upset with me. When the plates went around again, he took another one. And then the race was on. I took another one. And I couldn't wait for those pork chops to stop eating the sides. It didn't matter anymore. I was going to beat him at the pork chop game. By our 4th pork chop, Mom picked up the platter that was left and took it into the kitchen and slammed it down. You kids have had enough. You go outside and play. Well, my birthday is June 6th, and it was only like 100 degrees outside, and it was probably 7:30 in the evening. It's still hot, so hot. But I realized that there is a motor home outside our house, which was a mobile home. And we went outside and we played house in the motorhome. Now Lauren pretended to read the newspaper with a paper bag as his prompt, smoking a pipe. I'm at the stove with my little apron on, my fake apron. I pretended to tie it, stirring my pork chops. And all of a sudden, Lauren comes up to me, bends me over, and he kisses me. He sticks his tongue in my mouth. I had no idea this was a thing. It was like little jackrabbits coming in and out and in and out and in and out. It was so disgusting. I pushed him away. That's gross. Now, I was a superior 13-year-old and purely above his knowledge base. But he assured me, no, this is the way adults kiss. My parents kiss it like this all the time. I've seen it on TV. Well, I'm surely not going to let a 12-year-old trump me. So I said, all right, you can do it again. And he kissed me. And it was, again, another jackrabbit. I pushed him away. But you know what? He tasted like a pork chop. When a few months later was Halloween time, I was still 13 years old, and I had that crush on Randy Purball just starting, and I was determined to kiss him because I knew how to kiss now. But how do I get him to kiss me? How do I get him to my house? I know, I'll have a party. Now, that old house next to ours was abandoned. Benjamin Franklin, his real name was James, but we called him President. He had passed 6 months before, and we had this abandoned house. So we decided to have the party there. But we didn't have a sewer. They had just taken it out, or it clogged up or something. So my dad said, you can't have a party because we can't get everybody in the mobile home if they have to use the restroom. I said, Dad, we have to have the party here. It's perfect. And again, I was going to kiss Randy Purball by playing Spin the Bottle. So I had the whole thing planned out and strategically placed the bottle across where I would sit and Randy would sit. But I was going to change my space if he had moved just an inch. It was great because my dad had decided to dig a trench from the bathroom to the rice field. It was about a 150-yard trench with this tractor so that the raw sewage would pull out and go to the rice field. It's really disgusting, but at the time I'm like, we get to have a party, we get to have a party. I'm gonna kiss Randy Purball. And so we all go, and there's hot dogs and crumble apples and the greatest time. Everybody was having a great time. And we all go upstairs, and we're going to play spin the bottle, and there's 8 of us around in a circle, and the rest of the people, 32, are all gathered around. The bottle spins eventually to Randy Purball and I, and we lean in. I'm prepared that when we hear blood-curdling screams downstairs. What is that? And then we heard, whoa, very similar to a zombie sound, but it was ghosts. And then the chandelier started shaking downstairs. We could hear it. So we all run downstairs, these steep stairs that we had given a warning to. The only warning was the steep stairs and that the sewer was open. Kids ran out. They were just trampling each other practically. I never got to kiss Randy Purball. It was such a disappointment. I mean, here it was. It turned out it was my brother and brother-in-law. They both worked at Mid-Valley Sound and Stereo, and they had come in the house and totally wired it up. We had speakers in the wall, upstairs, downstairs, in the roof. I swear in the floor too, because of the way it was shaking. And of course, what was the chandelier? A broom hitting it before we came downstairs. Oh my gosh. So we're all running outside the house, and Greg decides to chase Ellen Lathrop. He got the inspiration from the ghost sound. Oh, I'm coming to get you, Barbara. Oh. Now Ellen, again, the homecoming queen, decides to just scream bloody murder and go around the house outside. She sees the trench. She jumps over. Greg did not see the trench and fell in it. He was covered with stink, crap, and his noises of moaning was real then. And the kids would just stand back from him like he was a real zombie. They were frightened of his stench. And my mom, this is October, mind you, she comes outside to scare all of the people with the hose. She takes the hose and pretends she's going to squirt everybody. But no, she squirts Greg up and down. She's like, he's not coming to my house to get a shower until he's clean. So she hosed him up and down. He's freezing. He goes into the house. Now, mind you, there's a line of kids at the phone, and Rosie Quintana is speaking in Spanish so fast we don't know what she's saying, which makes us a little bit more frightened, because at the time we didn't even know it was my brother's. We still thought the house was haunted. So Greg comes in, takes a shower, and he only has the clothes my brother gave him. And my brother's like 2 years younger than him. So the shirt went up to here midriff. The pants were Greg was skinny, so they fit, but they were down to maybe an inch below his knees. So Greg's dad picked him up. A lot of people picked him up, their kids up. But on Monday, I had the best Halloween story, best Halloween party on record 47 years later. Okay, so Greg Herger invited me to the prom. I was ecstatic. Mom bought me a new dress, which was rare. And I went back to her house to get ready because my house was too far. I caked on the makeup from Long's Drugs. And my brother was beating on the door. Let me in, let me in. He busted down the door and he punched me right in the eye. So as my eye swole, I was going to have a black eye for my prom. And Greg took me anyway with the corsage on my wrist. He took me dancing for a couple of dances. He avoided taking the picture with me. And as I went home, kind of depressed, took the washcloth and I wiped all my makeup off. And wouldn't you know it, I look in the mirror. I look just like a zombie. Thank you.
Okay, Suzon.